The first time they laughed at me, it was quiet. Not the kind of laughter that fills a room, just enough to let you know it was meant for you. I was on my knees by the glass conference room, wiping fingerprints off a table that cost more than my yearly salary, when someone inside said, "Careful, don't distract him." This is probably the most responsibility he's ever had. A pause, then a few chuckles. Polite, educated, cruel in the way only educated people manage. I didn't look up. I never do. That's the trick. When people think you don't matter, they stop hiding things. By 8:17 a.m., I had already been stepped around 6 times, bumped twice, and spoken to exactly once. Not spoken with, spoken at. "Hey, Mop, you missed a spot." No name, no eye contact, just a finger pointing at marble. This was the 42nd floor of Hargreave & Cole, one of the most expensive law firms in the city. Glass walls, soft leather chairs, men and women who billed more per hour than I earned in a week. They walked past me every day and never asked who I was, how long I'd been here, or why a janitor in his 40s worked nights and mornings. They assumed the answer was simple. Loser. Failed. Invisible. At 9:02, the associates started arriving. Younger. Louder. Still cruel, just less polished about it. "Morning, sir," one of them said, mockingly formal, as he stepped over my cleaning bucket. "Living the dream?" Another added, "Don't trip him. If he gets hurt, we'll have to read about it in the break room safety memo." Laughter again. This time, louder. I counted 3 voices. I always count. I pushed the bucket aside and stood. Slowly, careful not to rush. Rushing makes people nervous. Nervous people look at you. They didn't look at me. That was fine. By late morning, the senior partners arrived. Different energy, less noise, more confidence. These were the ones the others tried to impress. Expensive suits, controlled smiles. The kind of people who never lowered their voices because they never expected consequences. I was emptying trash near the executive floor when I heard my name. Not the one they think I have. The real one. "This case is airtight," a man said behind the closed door of Conference B. "Judge is predictable. Defense is weak. Once we bury them in motions, they'll fold." Another voice responded, amused. "And if they don't?" A pause. Then, laughter. The confident kind. "Then we make an example. Like last time." My hand tightened around the trash bag. Last time, I stayed where I was, staring at the floor, breathing steady. The door opened a few seconds later. 3 men stepped out. One of them nearly walked into me. He stopped, frowned, and waved a hand in front of his nose. "Jesus, they let you clean this floor now?" I stepped aside immediately. Head down. Apologetic posture. The posture they expect. "Watch it," he added, already walking away. "Some of us are working." I watched their reflections fade in the glass. Inside the trash bag were shredded drafts, sticky notes, half-torn printouts. Most janitors threw them away without thinking. I never did. Because some of the most important information in the world gets thrown out by people who believe they're untouchable. And today, for the first time in years, I saw a name I hadn't seen since the day my life ended, typed neatly at the top of a discarded motion. I didn't react, didn't blink, didn't stop moving. I tied the bag, rolled my cart forward, and kept cleaning. To them, I was still just the janitor. That was exactly where I needed to be. By noon, the building settled into its rhythm. Phones ringing behind glass, shoes clicking on marble, voices lowered just enough to feel important. That's when people get careless. I moved floor by floor, same route I'd walked for months. Same nods, same looks through me. No one noticed how long I paused near certain offices. No one noticed what I listened for. You learn patterns when you're invisible. Who eats lunch at their desk? Who leaves doors cracked? Who shreds documents properly and who doesn't? At 12:41 p.m., I passed the break room and heard someone say, "If this goes to court, it'll be over in a week. He doesn't have the money to fight us." Another voice laughed. He barely had money to survive back then. I didn't slow down. Slowing down invites attention. But my mind was already years away from that room, back to a smaller office, a cheaper suit, a different version of myself sitting across from people who smiled while they signed my future away. I reached the stairwell and stopped. Alone, concrete walls, no cameras inside. I took the folded paper from my pocket and read it properly for the first time. Case number, department, judge assignment. It wasn't just related to my past. It was my past. They were reopening it, quietly, confidently, to erase the last loose end. Me, I folded the paper again and placed it back into my pocket, right over my heart. Not for sentiment, for placement. I always keep important things there. The rest of the afternoon passed like every other day. More comments, more jokes. One associate spilled coffee near my cart and said, "Relax, man. It's not like you're busy." Another snapped his fingers when I didn't move fast enough. "Hey, buddy, trash." Buddy, that one always amused me. At 3:18, I heard my name again. The real one. This time louder. "He won't show," a woman said. "People like him never do." A man replied, "Doesn't matter. Even if he does, he's finished. No lawyer would touch that case." I cleaned slower after that, not because I was distracted, because I was listening. They talked about timing, about press, about how optics would be handled. They joked about how easy it was to break someone when everyone believed the same story. And they were right. That's exactly how it worked. At 5, the building began to empty. At 6:30, it was almost quiet. By 7:15, only lights from a few offices remained. Those were the offices I waited for. I emptied trash again, carefully, methodically. In Conference B, I found more drafts, handwritten notes this time, careless, confident handwriting. In one bin, under coffee cups and sandwich wrappers, I found something better. A printed email thread, internal, detailed, stupidly honest. I read it once, then again, then a third time, slower. They weren't just confident, they were sloppy. I returned to the supply closet, closed the door, and stood in the dark for a moment. Not because I needed to hide, because I needed to breathe. This was the point where most people would feel anger, or fear, or excitement. I felt none of it. What I felt was alignment. Every insult, every laugh, every time they told me to watch it or move faster, every time they spoke over me like I wasn't human. They had no idea they were funding the quietest investigation of their lives. At 9:02 p.m., I clocked out. Outside, the city was loud, alive. People rushing to dinners, bars, lives they believed were permanent. I walked 3 blocks, entered a small office building, and rode the elevator up to the 4th floor. No sign on the door, just a lock I knew well. Inside, the room was bare except for a desk, a chair, a filing cabinet, and a laptop. I placed the papers down, smoothed them flat, and turned on the lamp. Then I started organizing. Names, dates, contradictions. I didn't rush. I never rush. Because revenge isn't about speed. It's about timing. And tomorrow, I would be back on the 42nd floor, mop in hand, listening. The 3rd day was when they started getting comfortable again. That always happens after people think they've sized you up. Once you've been reduced to a role in their heads, you stop being a variable. Janitor, background noise, furniture that moves. By 10 a.m., one of the junior associates was practicing his closing argument out loud near the windows, pacing like a man rehearsing his victory lap. I wiped the same desk twice, slow enough to hear every word. "Jury won't care," he said to no one in particular. "They never do. Facts matter less than who looks credible." He laughed at his own insight. Another voice answered, older, calmer. "Just don't overplay it. The judge hates theatrics." I know. Still, it's almost insulting how easy this is. Easy. I adjusted the trash liner and kept my eyes on the floor. He didn't notice me nodding, not in agreement, but in recognition. He was repeating something he'd heard before, something taught. That's when I knew. They weren't just reopening the case, they were rehearsing it, recycling the same strategy, same language, same blind spots. At noon, I was sent upstairs to clean the partner's lounge. No jokes there, no snapping fingers, just silence and entitlement. The kind that doesn't need to announce itself. On the counter sat a legal journal, open to an article about wrongful convictions. Someone had circled a paragraph in red pen. Irony has a sense of humor. I finished wiping the counter and glanced at the margin notes. Small handwriting, aggressive, dismissive, outlier, rare, necessary casualties. I memorized the handwriting, not the words, the shape of them. People deny words. They don't deny their own pen. Later that afternoon, something changed. One of the partners stopped me, not to insult me, not to order me around, to look at me. "Hey," he said, "you've been here a while, right?" I froze just enough to seem unsure, then nodded. "How long?" "Couple years," I said quietly. I keep my voice low on purpose. Makes people lean in, makes them feel in control. He studied me, not suspicious, curious. "You ever hear anything odd around here?" I shook my head immediately, too fast, then corrected it, slower, just work stuff. He smiled, relieved. "Right, of course." He walked away, already done with me. But the question mattered. It meant something had shifted inside their walls. Pressure, stress, the faint awareness that not everything was locked down as tightly as they thought. That night, I stayed later than usual. At 8:47 p.m., I was in the records room. Officially, janitors aren't supposed to be there alone. Unofficially, no one checks. They assume boredom is a security system. I found the archived file. Same case number. Same parties. Different conclusions. The original ruling had been altered. Language softened. Responsibility blurred. Names removed from footnotes. The truth diluted just enough to be legal. That takes coordination and confidence. I photographed everything. Not rushed. Clean angles. Clear timestamps. Then I closed the file, returned it exactly where it belonged, and locked the cabinet. When I stepped back into the hallway, someone was standing there. A woman, early 30s, sharp eyes, new suit. She looked at me, really looked. "You work nights too?" she asked. I nodded. She hesitated. "You ever think about doing something else?" There it was. The pity, the assumption, the ladder she believed she was above. "I'm fine," I said. She smiled, relieved again. People like relief. It lets them walk away without guilt. "Good," she said. "This place eats people." She had no idea how right she was. At home that night, I didn't organize documents. I practiced saying my name out loud, slowly, the way it used to sound before it was dragged through courtrooms and headlines and lies. Tomorrow, the firm would file a motion. They believed it would go unnoticed. It wouldn't, because the janitor had already read it. The motion was filed at 9 a.m. sharp. I knew because the printer on the 42nd floor always jammed on the first run of the day. Same sound, same irritated sighs, same curse under someone's breath. I was mopping near reception when it happened. "Seriously?" one of the associates snapped. "This thing better be clean. We're on a deadline." I kept my head down, but I memorized the rhythm of the room. Who stood where? Who touched what? Who looked calm and who didn't? Deadlines make people sloppy. The document tray filled fast. Too fast. Someone grabbed their copies and left the rest behind. I waited until the floor was empty, then pulled the forgotten pages free and slid them under my cart. Motion to dismiss. Grounds, procedural deficiency. Argument. Lack of standing. They were trying to end it before it started. By noon, the partners were relaxed again. Lunch orders. Jokes. One of them said, "This'll be wrapped before the end of the month." Another replied, "Good. I'm tired of ghosts." I didn't flinch. At 1:26 p.m., I made my first move. Not dramatic, not obvious, just a small correction. In Conference C, someone had left a legal pad open. Same handwriting I'd seen the day before. Red pen. Aggressive loops. I adjusted one page. Not removed. Not altered. just rotated. Enough that the security camera would catch the timestamp, enough that it would look like someone checked it. That was all I needed. At 3, I dropped off trash in the IT office. The door was open. A technician was arguing on the phone. No, I get it. But if the log shows access, it shows access. Doesn't matter who it was. I kept walking. At 4:12, a partner stormed out of his office. Who the hell touched my files? No answer. Silence makes anger louder. By 5:40, tension had spread. Quiet tension. Emails sent. Voices lowered. By 7, 2 people stayed late. That's when mistakes happen. I waited until the lights dimmed and walked back to Conference C. The legal pad was gone, but the table wasn't clean. There was a fingerprint in the corner, oil from skin, smudged red ink. I wiped around it, not over it. At home that night, I added one more column to my chart. Who noticed? Who reacted? Who panicked? One name circled itself. Tomorrow, the judge would receive a supplemental filing. They believed it would strengthen their case. It wouldn't, because tomorrow, someone would ask a question they hadn't prepared for, and the answer would already be in the building. Court day didn't feel dramatic. No thunder, no sudden silence, just another morning where people believed the world would behave the way it always had. I arrived early, earlier than usual. Same uniform, same cart, same posture that told everyone I belonged to the floor, not the room. The courtroom filled slowly. Lawyers first, confident, relaxed. They joked quietly, straightened ties, checked phones. They'd done this hundreds of times. They knew how this ended. I stood near the wall, out of the way, holding a trash bag no one needed emptied. One of them passed me and said, without slowing, "Make sure you're gone before we start." I stepped back immediately. The judge entered. Routine, formal, unimpressed. Proceedings began exactly as expected. Motions referenced, precedents cited, voices steady, controlled. I watched faces, not words. Confidence holds a certain tension. It's tight around the eyes, shoulders slightly raised. People waiting for confirmation they already assume is coming. Then something small happened. The judge paused. Just a second too long. He adjusted his glasses and flipped a page back. Then forward again. "Counsel," he said, calm but precise. "Before we proceed, I have a question regarding your supplemental filing." The room shifted. Chairs creaked. Pens stopped moving. "Yes, Your Honor," one of them said quickly, too quickly. "This section," the judge continued, tapping the page, "references an internal review conducted prior to the original ruling, yet the court record shows no such review was disclosed at the time." Silence. Not loud silence, the kind that creeps in. "That's correct, Your Honor," the attorney said. "The review was deemed non-material." The judge looked up. "Direct. By whom?" A pause. "By the firm," the attorney said carefully. The judge nodded once. Then, "Interesting, because the metadata on this document suggests it was modified after the original ruling date." The first ripple of panic passed through the room. I felt it before I saw it. People shifted. Someone coughed. And the judge added, "The access logs provided indicate the file was reopened multiple times in the last 48 hours. He looked over his glasses. Care to explain that? No one spoke. Not because they couldn't, because there was no rehearsed answer. I remained against the wall, eyes down, invisible as ever. One of the partners glanced around the room, searching for something familiar. Control. Authority. Certainty. He didn't find it. The judge continued, voice even. "I am ordering a brief recess. When we return, I expect a clear explanation of why material related to a closed matter appears to have been quietly revised." Gavel. Recess. The room exploded into whispers. Phones came out. Lawyers clustered. Voices urgent now. Controlled panic dressed as professionalism. Someone brushed past me hard enough to make my cart rattle. "Watch it," he snapped automatically. I steadied the cart and stepped aside. As they regrouped, I noticed something else. One woman stared at me. Not with contempt, with recognition. Her eyes flicked to my badge, back to my face, then away. She knew. Not everything, but enough. When the judge returned, the tone was different. Sharper, less patient. Explanations were given, carefully worded, incomplete. The judge listened, then said, "I'll be requesting a full audit of all related filings. Additionally, I want sworn statements regarding document handling and internal access." The color drained from more than one face. "And," he added, "I will be calling certain individuals by name." He began reading, one by one. Not defendants, not witnesses. Lawyers, partners, people who had laughed at a janitor without ever seeing him. I didn't move, didn't react, didn't look up, because the moment wasn't about me standing tall. It was about them sitting still. As the session adjourned, I took my cart and walked out quietly. Outside, the city moved like nothing had happened. But inside that building, something irreversible had begun. And tomorrow, they would want to know who had been watching all along. The building felt different the next morning. Quieter, not empty, careful. People spoke in short sentences. Doors closed more often. Smiles disappeared the second they thought no one important was watching. The 42nd floor had developed a nervous system overnight. I pushed my cart through reception and no one joked. That alone told me everything. At 9:30, an email went out firm-wide. I didn't see the subject line, but I didn't need to. You can hear panic even when it's typed. Printer started up again, harder this time. Overworked. By 10:15, two men I recognized from court were arguing behind a glass wall. "This is an internal issue," one hissed. "No," the other snapped back. "This is a liability." I stopped to wipe a trash can. They didn't notice. They were saying names now. Real ones. Not titles. At 11:02, security arrived. Not uniformed guard suits, the kind that don't need badges because everyone already knows who they are. They spoke to reception first, then HR, then the partners. I cleaned around them like furniture. At noon, the woman from court found me. I was refilling soap in the restroom when she entered and locked the door behind her. That alone was a mistake. "You," she said. I turned slowly. Neutral face, empty eyes. "You were there yesterday," she continued. "At the hearing." I nodded. "Cleaning." Her jaw tightened. "You were on the floor during the recess." "Yes." She stared at me, searching. "What's your name?" I hesitated, just long enough. "It's on the badge." She looked. "Read it." I watched her process the lie. Because it was a lie. A clean one. "That case," she said quietly, "you know something about it." "No, ma'am." She exhaled through her nose. Frustrated. "We're being audited. Files are being pulled. People are nervous." I met her eyes for the first time. "They should be," I said. The words landed harder than I expected. Her pupils widened. "Who are you?" she whispered. I stepped past her, unlocked the door, and walked out. At 2:40 p.m., the judge's order arrived. Full audit, mandatory testimony, preservation of all records, immediate. No more quiet fixes, no more backroom edits. One of the partners slammed his office door so hard a frame cracked. Another sat at his desk staring at nothing. By late afternoon, they were no longer pretending it was under control. Names were being connected, timelines aligned, internal emails resurfaced. At 6, someone finally said it out loud. This started inside the building. Silence followed. At 7:12, security footage was reviewed. Not everything, just enough. A janitor's cart, a conference room, a timestamp. They froze the frame. "That's him," someone said. I was still on the floor when they came looking. Two security men, polite, firm. "Sir, we need to ask you a few questions." I nodded and followed them. They led me to a small conference room. Glass walls, bright lights, no audience. The woman was there. So were two partners. No smiles now. One of them leaned forward. "You've been in this building a long time." "Yes." You've had access to sensitive areas. I cleaned them. He paused. Do you understand what's happening here? I met his gaze fully this time. No posture, no act. Yes, I said, perfectly. The room went still. I reached into my pocket and placed a folder on the table. Carefully, flat. Before you ask your questions, I continued calm, you should know something. Their eyes locked onto the folder. I didn't expose you, I said. You exposed yourselves. I just stopped cleaning it up. I stood, adjusted my jacket, and spoke my name. My real one. Slowly. They recognized it instantly. Color drained from their faces. Because now, the janitor wasn't invisible anymore. And tomorrow, the court would call more names. The courtroom was full this time. No casual confidence. No jokes whispered behind folders. Everyone sat straighter, as if posture alone could distance them from what was coming. I took my seat in the back. No cart, no uniform, just a plain jacket and my name on the docket. My real name. The judge entered and didn't waste time. Let's proceed. The first witness was called. A partner. One who used to snap his fingers at me. He walked to the stand with practiced composure, swore the oath, and answered the opening question smoothly. Then the documents came out. Emails he didn't remember writing, notes he claimed were contextual, edits he said were standard procedure. The judge listened, patient, silent, then asked one question. If these changes were standard, why were they made after the ruling date? The partner opened his mouth, closed it, tried again. Nothing came out. One by one, the names were called. Each one heavier than the last. People who had laughed in hallways. People who believed they were untouchable because they decided who mattered and who didn't. Each took the stand and repeated the same mistake. They explained around the truth. The truth didn't need help. When my name was called, the room shifted. Not because I was important, because they finally understood who I was. I walked to the stand slowly. No rush, no performance. I told the court exactly what I had done, what I had cleaned, what I had seen, what I had preserved instead of throwing away. I didn't accuse, I explained. The judge thanked me and dismissed me. That was it. No speech, no victory pose. The ruling came later, predictable, inevitable. Motions denied, audits expanded, referrals issued. Careers ended quietly, some loudly. Outside, reporters gathered. Cameras flashed. Questions shouted. I didn't stop. Across the street, the building reflected the sky in its glass, just another structure now. Not a fortress, not a throne. I walked past the entrance where I used to be told to move faster. No one laughed. No one spoke. They didn't need to, because the court had already called their names, and for the first time, they had to answer.